Hey guys, welcome back. This week, well, this is actually a kind of surprise episode. We weren't planning on doing this week, but I saw Ben Gordon's video pop up on the internet a couple days ago, and it was absolutely mind blowing. It's crazy what's happening if this is a true story, which I believe it is. It's essentially he escaped a hospital from
Hospital.
hospital from a murder attempt. It sounds crazy, I know, but we're gonna turn it over to him and let him tell a story. But when I heard the story, immediately I thought this sounds like a MILAB experience, a military abduction. I realize not everybody knows what MILAB is. It was way too coordinated. It all sounded like it was a coordinated an attack almost. So
It does.
without wasting any more time, I'm just going to turn it over to you, Ben. Let you introduce yourself and tell us what happened, and we'll just break this down.
All right. Hey, I'm Ben Gordon. On January 30th, sometime around noon, I lost control of the car. I was very close to home. I wasn't feeling super well prior, and that came on really suddenly. Like I had every intention of ordering a burger and fries at this place, and I all of a sudden just left. I felt dizzy, confused, and I was like, just go home, man. And I didn't make it home. So I haven't stressed this point in the other interviews just because I think that your platform is probably a better one to do it. But my memory is that the way I remember it is that it felt like something impacted the car first and the windshield. I turned the wheel to the right super fast enough to flip the car. And it did one complete revolution, and I ended up on all four wheels, like bam. And I was looking at the windshield, and it was all spider webbed. It had that gel-like kind of sinking look to it. Most of the window, the driver's side window, was busted out. The right one as well. I tried to open the door, and it was bent just enough where it was not going to open, and I couldn't get out these glass-ridden windows either. I could have climbed out if it was clean. So then I went to my body, and I'm like moving stuff around, and I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm that hurt here. But I was kind of still confused, and I couldn't figure out what had happened, but I knew I was okay physically. And it couldn't have been more than 10, 12 minutes later that I saw somebody drive up, and it was an EMT that approached the car. I don't remember any other interaction with this guy except for saying no to the thing that he pulled out of a little pouch, which was a syringe. And he said, "I'm just going to calm you down, boss," or something like that. I'm like, no, 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 boom.
Yeah, that's not a normal thing that happens.
So let's imagine for a second that I did have something internal with my neck or whatever. So, okay, they had to pry the door off, but in the meantime, they're going to sedate me, and then my neck goes like this.
Yeah, that's not something
Yeah,
you're supposed to do.
without analyzing your condition, it doesn't make any sense to do that.
Doesn't make any sense.
It could cause more harm than good. But anyway,
yeah, totally.
keep going, because we'll expand on that. It's definitely suspicious.
So the next 7 or so hours are moving along without me, let's just say, because I was out. And the next thing that happened for me was I woke up in one kind of just burst of energy. It felt like an adrenaline thing, and I didn't see light, but I felt it. It just came from my center, like, ugh. And I just started going for the tube, and I went really slow, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It kept coming. And then I grabbed it, and I turned around, and I looked, and there was one of those. I mean, I've looked up every picture of a ventilator, and it was a ventilator. I could feel just slight, like there was just a little pulse to the tube. So I then went for the IV, which was in my left arm, slowly got the tape off that, pulled the needle out, and then I went for the catheter. I didn't know at this time that there's a ball of like a little balloon of saline at the end. So it didn't even feel that bad. I'm going real slow. And then I could feel like a pop. So the balloon obviously popped, the saline probably released, and getting the very last bit out hurt like hell. And then I'm bleeding all over the place from my area. So I grabbed the hospital. They're white. It's bleeding through.
Well, let me stop you just for a second. So what made you immediately panic and decide to rip all that stuff out instead of just like cooperating? Was it just like you just internally knew something was wrong?
It was entirely instinctual. I was like, get this stuff out of me.
Yeah.
There was no thought. There was no like, first I'll do this and then I'll do that.
Right.
There was none of that.
Yeah.
So I found my black shorts, which had been cut off, laying right next to the bed. I guess that's hospital protocol. They just leave your cut off clothes sitting there. Yeah.
Yes,
Just
totally.
like, and by the way, like when I left there was scabbing and dry blood. They never even wiped my face off, which is hilarious. Yeah. So I grabbed these shorts and now that's kind of covering the blood. And I walk to the door. I open it. I look to the left first, and that's where the desk was. And there were 4 staff sitting there. And I go, why the hell did you put me on a vent? And they all like, it was like silence for a second. And then they were like, go.
They were in shock that you were awake.
Well, it was like they were seeing a ghost. They're like, I wasn't supposed to be standing up.
So
I didn't back all the way into the room at that point. I stood in the doorway and kind of put my arms like this. And I'm looking, and there's one younger nurse-looking person. There's like a bigger woman that looks like a doctor. I don't know if she was a doctor. And there were 2 young gentlemen that looked to be in their 20s and looked like just security guards, but they were not bigger than me. So I just kept grilling, like, why the hell would you put me on this vent? And no answers. They're just looking at each other like,
what do we say?
Like he's not supposed to be awake. Yeah. Well, probably they were shocked that you ripped all that stuff out of you. They would have never imagined. They probably never seen anybody do that.
No. And you know, don't they have like little things at their desk that would tell them that one of those things came out?
Yeah. Right. Like an alert. Yeah.
If it was a normal hospital, yeah.
Some sort of sensor. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I really don't think this place was a actual hospital from what you described.
Location, we'll get into that, but the location checks out, but there's some other weird.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it gets weirder. So, so finally they said, okay, you don't have to go back into the bed, but let's come in here and talk. And I let them in a little bit, but remained standing. Once again, why did you put me on that vent? And the young nurse said, because you have COVID.
So you just immediately.
I go, yeah, well.
Somebody on the vent.
I go, yeah, okay, I have COVID, but those machines are for late stage, can't breathe on your own, end of life type of thing.
Yeah, you don't just immediately put somebody on a vent when they test positive for COVID. That's
right. Well, they're trying to move faster and faster with that, but and I said, what drugs did you put me on? What was coming through that IV? And the same young snotty nurse person said propofol, to which I said, oh, the thing that killed Michael Jackson, cool. And then fentanyl and morphine. And I was like, you know, but like what?
They're trying to kill you.
Yeah, I was like, listen, like, does it look like I was like making like gestures? I'm like, does it look like I'm having any trouble breathing on my own here? Like I could have done a song and dance routine if I wanted. I was like so charged. No answers. You know, I'm like, I want my lawyer. They didn't say, okay, we'll grab you a phone call. So this wrangling goes on. I don't know the timeline. I'm guessing 45 minutes to an hour of no questions being answered. The more doctor looking person said nothing. Now, when you're trying to like step somebody down, de-escalate, there's a whole bunch of things they could have said. Ben, well, they didn't know my name. They still don't, because I was on the phone with hospital records 4 different times yesterday. And they're like, okay.
They didn't ID you? They didn't like your
There's so
wallet?
much
or-
about this, you guys, that
It doesn't make any sense.
no, I personally went to the towing company. It's called Firebird Towing in the Verde Valley. And I casually, he's like, you can get whatever you want out of there. He goes, but he goes, all of your vitamins and supplements ended up all over the crash scene because I had a Rubbermaid bin full of all of my, I'm just here in AZ for like, I was supposed to do a short-term project. I don't live here. And I
Oh, you were
don't
just-
have, I don't have enough room to, like, I was using my car as storage for like.
Right. So, sorry. So real quick, you're in, we didn't establish that. This is in Arizona for the people who don't know the story. Did you say Yuma in one of the videos?
No. The where the crash happened and where my little temp place is in Rim Rock,
Oh,
Arizona,
okay.
which is
Okay.
like 20 minutes south of Sedona, about an
Oh, okay.
hour south of Flagstaff.
Okay. I don't know why I said Yuma.
Yeah, and you said you were airlifted to Flagstaff, correct? From the crash?
I was, but okay, so that's a great question because it brings us back to the tow person, and I almost forgot what I was talking about. When I went to go, let me answer that first. So like when I went back to the crash site, the guy that rented me the room took me there, and he said, "Fish whatever you can out of there." And I reached in and I grabbed this coat, and there's my wallet with my ID. No one ever took it.
Wow.
Nobody ever took my wallet out of to identify me.
Yeah, that's like the first thing they do. That's
Not-
like
Okay,
they
so
would not do that.
And well, they would do that for two reasons. Well, for one main reason. For two, they know who you are. For two, they can alert your family or anybody.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's
So-
a hugely important thing. Yeah,
Okay.
they would not.
So he did. So this guy at the tow place has seen everything. He's had his family business for a long time. He was super cool and funny. And he goes, this is what he said. I go, why the hell would they airlift me to Flagstaff? And he goes, oh, that's protocol. He goes, trust me, you wouldn't want to go to a hospital in the Verde Valley. They will kill you.
really,
Really?
Yeah, he said, and I've received probably 4 or 5 emails from people that went to a hospital in the Verde Valley, and they have horror stories. 60%
Wow.
of my email inbox, and I don't even know how people got my email, are people with horror stories. And then people with shows, channels, interviews, stuff like that. And then people like looking for a new friend. You know what I mean? Like, call me, and like these weird women reaching out to me and calling me. I'm like,
Yeah.
who are you? Like
yeah.
I'm not,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is not a dating site. This is not a fun experience for me. But so I'm fishing around my car. What I want to find is my phone, and I have not found that. Happy about the wallet, confused about why my wallet would still be there. But I did
Yeah.
find, I'm covering the name, a different person's ID right by the gas pedal.
Really?
And it's
That's
good. It's good till 2/6/2023. So I'm flipped out, and I go over to the tow guy. He's talking to my roommate, and he goes, "Oh, you'd be surprised what flies out of a car." He's like, "This is probably the previous owner, but I know the previous owner, so it's not his." But I don't know if that's something or not. But the fact remains is I was on the horn with the hospital 4 different times, and they go, "Send the front and back of your ID because we still don't know who you are." But they called my family.
So clearly they do know who you are.
Yeah.
Well-
nothing about this adds up.
Nothing adds up to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's rewind back to the hospital. So all that wrangling goes on. All of my questions go unanswered. No paper. I'm asking for paperwork. There's nothing. They're not, offering to let me call somebody. And then another party walked in with a ripped up piece of paper and goes, "Is this a good contact for you?" And it was my sister's name and number. And I go, "Yeah, but I just want to get out of here." Because I was so close at this point. I could tell like I was probably going to get out of there. So I asked for an adult diaper. They brought me an adult diaper. I was bleeding so bad. So I put that on and I go, "How about some clothes?" Like they brought me like some scrub pants, a hippie sweatshirt, like a tie-dye looking thing that didn't fit, like it was way too small. And then some shoes that didn't fit, they were way too small. And I'm fully clothed, and I go, so I'm going? And they were like, mm-hmm. So in order for me to get out, I had to pee in a thing. They said that they wanted to make sure that I was not clotting in the urethra, because if all of a sudden you're backed up, you know. So I did that. This doctor that came in to have me do that and sort of let me go, she never really spoke to me. The only thing she said to me, she asked about the bandages and she goes, slow or fast? And I go, fast. She didn't say anything else. And she's got her mask on. And here's what her eyes were doing. This is like what she looked like, her energy.
Really?
She looked like, she just looked like a child. Like she had child energy. And so the two young gentlemen are the ones that kind of went to the door, which was to the right of the desk in this hallway. And by the way, this hallway was like dimly lit. I saw no hustle and bustle of a hospital scene. It looked like the boiler room should have been next to the bed next to me. It looked, there was no other machine in there but the vent. There was no other hospital, no shelving units. There was, you know what I mean? Like those hospital shelving units, or like a poster about COVID-19 or anything.
Yeah, there's normally a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, all that typical stuff that you would see. So these two young men brought me to the door, and I go, seriously, I'm going? And they're like, yeah. So there's a against medical advice form that you always fill out if you leave against their medical recommendations, that frees them from liability if I fall down and break my face 2 seconds later.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that, and they're just going to let you go without a ride arranged, or did they have a ride arranged?
Nope. So it was 9 degrees. I would learn later that night in Flagstaff. So there I'm in a hoodie, and I just walked straight, because one of those young men, he goes, if you just stay right on the street and keep going, you'll run into downtown Flagstaff. So
He just
I just walked. All I wanted was a cigarette. And so I'm walking, and I see this bar on my left, and it's called Rendezvous. And there's a dude smoking a cigarette, and I'm there. I am with like bloody pants, dried blood all over my face. And Flagstaff is sort of like
it's 9 degrees outside.
It's 9 degrees, so I know I look like a total hobo. Like I'm like, no one's gonna talk to me. So he gives me a cigarette, and I try telling him his story, and the guy goes, dude, I can't. So he walks back in. I was like, fuck. I was like, oh, I gotta go in this place, don't I? So I walk into this bar, and it's a nice bar too. Like really high ceilings, and like couples on dates, and the bartender has a tie, and he's
a high-end bar.
Total high-end bar. It was the wrong bar, but it was the first bar. So I was like, what are your choices here? So I kind of slide into the bar, and there's a good amount of spacing between groups of people, and I sit at the bar stool, and I got some water from the bartender, and I said, I just had an ordeal. I go, can you find me another cigarette? Like I just wanted to chain smoke, and he did. And then a young gentleman like slid to the stool next to me and goes, it looks like you need help. And I go, dude, you don't know the half of it. And I told him the whole thing. And he backed up a little bit. And he goes, I think I believe you. I go, dude, this is 100% real. So
thank you.
So he goes, I'm going to get you home. I love helping people. And I go, dude, I live in Rimrock. That's like an hour away. He goes, I'll get you a lift. I'm like, no, that's going to be $200. I go, how about this? I know one phone number by heart. It was a friend of mine back in Wisconsin. And I texted him through the phone. Hey, it's Ben. I'm using someone else's text or phone. And there was no answer. It was probably too late for him. You know, he's got kids and stuff. So we waited for a reply. It didn't happen. He goes, no, I'm getting you a lift, and that's all there is to it.
Wow.
And it was like, and it only ended up being $88. So the lift got there fast, and he followed me out. He handed the Lyft driver a cash tip, and I just sat in the back the whole way home, like thinking, what the hell?
What just happened?
But all I wanted was cigarettes. So I was trying to get the Lyft driver to stop for cigarettes, and he's like, I can't. He's like, I can't.
Like, no, man.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the whole story from getting injected at the crash site to getting out of there.
So, okay, let's go back to the hospital. What have you discovered about the hospital as far as so you think it's a legitimate hospital, but what do you think maybe you were in a section of that hospital that wasn't, like, it was off limits or something?
Kind of shady.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what I'm thinking, because when I retraced my steps from that hospital to that particular bar, it was just over a mile, and it was the exact direction. But if you look at Google Maps of the hospital, everything's going to be backwards. So on the opposite end of the hospital was where the emergency unit is. I saw no sliding glass doors, no emergency thing on the outside of it. It looked like that part of the hospital was not utilized generally for patients. It did not look like a COVID unit. They were not in hazmat.
Right.
Saw no other patients, saw no other staff.
It's
and like you said it was very empty, right? You said there was nothing normal, like lots of people walking around, and it was like super empty.
Like if you removed that bed I was in, the ventilator, and the desk that they were gathered around, I would have no idea that that was a hospital.
Really?
Well,
Wow.
but it was part of the hospital. Can you?
Yes,
Are you
I believe so.
Are you
But
comfortable?
why would they
with-
take you to that part exactly? That's the question.
Well,
And why no
And
paperwork?
put you on a
and why-
vent.
Why no paperwork? And why
Yeah.
why do they still not know who I am?
They don't. Why didn't they ID? Yeah, get your wallet and your ID. That doesn't make any sense. There's so many things that don't add up at all. Like you said, it's just very. Yeah, there's something weird going on for sure with that.
Yep.
well, to me, so are you comfortable with naming the hospital? Or are you not wanting?
I've named it before, so I don't see why not. Flagstaff Medical Center. It is the only hospital in Flagstaff.
Okay, so I'm sure
Okay.
somebody.
What I personally maybe don't want, and some people, I know people are doing this. I was talking to, you guys know Dr. Andrew Kaufman?
I don't know if I'm familiar with them entirely.
Oh, he's got a big presence online anyway.
Oh yeah. I've seen him around. I've seen him.
Yeah. I was telling him, I was sort of lamenting that I just knew that people were probably calling that place up and like, you were gonna harvest his organs and stuff, you know, like they're probably getting so many calls. And I don't know, like there's no way for me to know at all whether or not they just intended to keep me in that place and then let me go anyway, and to collect the $39,000 for the vent, to get the COVID diagnosis, to collect as much as they could, or if their intent was to indeed kill me.
I mean, the organ harvesting isn't out of the question because we know that's a reality.
Seriously.
So looking at this whole thing, the accident itself might have been staged, meaning it could have
That's what
been
it sounds like.
it could have been an attack. And what our audience doesn't know about you is that you've had these experiences or similar experiences like this going on all the way back to childhood. So we've had a few guests on before, what we call TIs or targeted individuals. Maybe there's some aspect of that going on, but it's definitely not standard protocol for any EMT to arrive on scene and immediately sedate someone. That would be more like a military operation. They knew what they would. It was almost like they were given orders. It wasn't just like this guy decided to do it on his own. They knew exactly where they were taking you for whatever reason. Maybe this was an attempted murder. Maybe they didn't plan on you surviving. Most of the times, we've heard horror stories, right? So it's very likely that that was a possibility.
Did he have the syringe immediately when, like, he didn't have to like go, oh, like check on you first and then, oh, I got to go get this thing. It's like he had it with him, which tells
Nope,
me
it was
that
it
was
was
the
one,
plan from the start.
yeah, it was one of those
Yeah.
formed orange pouches,
Mhm.
and out it came. And the social workers who miraculously talk to my family, but can't communicate my idea to the hospital as of yesterday, my family was told that night after I left that I was combative at the scene. But what am I going to do? I'm trapped in a car. Was I going to look? Come on, let's go.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
like for sure,
Makes sense.
sure. If somebody had said we're going to take you to the hospital, I would have protested. But I only remember. I remember the man walking up, and he was pretty big dude, and I remember that coming out. I don't remember him saying anything other than, "We're just going to calm you down, boss."
He just immediately pulled it out. They didn't check on you first to see how,
No, but they're going to
what you're
say that they
doing,
did.
what you need.
Right. So
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's
They-
definitely not normal.
you had mentioned also that they had told your family that you had acute pancreatitis. Is that correct? And something else? What happened with that?
They said I had a broken nose and acute pancreatitis.
That was,
I had asked my sister, who was talking to the social worker, tell me everything that they said. This was in an email. I need to know everything that they told you. And she said that I was combative at the scene. They had to sedate me and intubate me. So I was intubated there at the scene.
So they said you were combative because you were trying to refuse the injection, correct? I'm
probably.
assuming.
Well, it's all there.
Well,
It's a made up story.
Anyone would
Anyway.
be combative. Of
You know,
that.
they can say
ridiculous.
whatever they want, but that's what they told. That's what they told my sister. And
Yeah,
that, yeah, I had a broken nose and that I had acute pancreatitis. And yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So, which neither of that was true, though.
And none of that was true, right? Yeah.
I mean, I think I might know. No, my nose is totally normal. However, I did like look it up, and it said sometimes it's possible to not even know your nose is broken. So maybe there's some sort of like compression, like little, I don't know. But the point is that they told me the only reason for me being on the vent was that I had COVID. And of course, my family, who's fully invested in the medical industrial complex, they totally believe that the experts and the science. They were like, they just did whatever they could to help you.
No, they didn't.
Yeah. Zero critical thinking or thinking at all, really.
What do you think? What have you gotten any information? Do you remember anything from the crash as far as how you flipped? You rolled because the car rolled, right?
It did. And I looked at the scratches all along, and it's clear that it rolled. I'm telling you, man, I felt an impact. That's what I felt first. Now, if it's the case that because I wasn't feeling well, something felt off, and I sort of like lost it, I could have felt the very first impact of the flip. But to my memory, I feel like I saw that windshield happen first. That's how I feel like it happened. Like something hit.
Something hit your windshield?
Well, I don't know, but so yesterday, my roommate, he's super cool. I lucked out with a short-term place to stay here, and we just happened to like totally hit it off. He comes home yesterday, and we're having a smoke out on the patio here. And he goes, "Oh, dude, I forgot to tell you, I was driving past the site of your crash." And he goes, "And I just got this intuition of somebody firing something from the hill." And I was like, whoa.
Really?
Well, there's no reason for that car to flip because it's totally flat. It's 40 miles an hour. I had to have gone ugh, as a reaction to something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The only way to flip going 40 is to go like
like really, really hard and fast. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, considering what we know about what you've already told us, it's not out of the realm of possibility that something like that actually happened. You know,
Totally.
the shooter on the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been a conventional gun, because I would have seen something in the windshield.
Almost
was
like an
just
energy,
thinking
like an energy weapon, which they have that. Even they can
Well,
do that with-
I was previously hit by a dew.
right. I have been too. I'm pretty
Maybe
positive.
some
I
kind
know
of
what that feels like.
sonic weapon, even.
That's
something
what I
like
was
that.
thinking. A
And that could
sonic
have broke your
weapon.
windshield.
The
Yeah,
sound.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you don't even see it. It looks totally insignificant, but the sonic boom, it's just like it creates an impact.
And that would
Well,
explain
sounds-
how your windshield shattered all of a sudden. That would explain that. If,
It shattered but held together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
film. The film on there designed
They're
to-
designed to do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
so there's a binding agent that prevents
Yeah.
it from.
Yeah.
it's a film, so it doesn't get all over your face. But sometimes, okay. So let's go back. You said you think you were, or you were attacked with a DEW before. Which, for those who don't know, a DEW, DEW, direct energy weapon. And can you explain that? When did that happen?
Yeah, I went through a period of a year where a lot of very strange things were happening, and this was 2015. I was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I was riding my bike down a little hill going towards this grocery store, which was to my right. And as I was approaching the crosswalk, two very like white bread businessmen were walking, and I was coming to a complete stop. And out of nowhere, I got hit on the left and flew about 4 feet off my bike and hit the curb and broke my ribs. These two guys stop and go, what just hit you? And I go, I have no idea. They're like, there was nothing. You flew like 4 feet, just bam.
Wow.
That, I mean, come on. When you have eyewitnesses like that saw it. I felt that. I just like, it's almost like someone laughing somewhere, like, give them a nudge. And bam, I went flying.
Well,
Like they're just messing with you.
and
Yeah.
that is the case with some targeted individuals. They play with this technology sometimes. And so what I've experienced before, which I can't prove or verify in any way, but it felt like I was hit. There's 2 separate occasions where I'm almost positive something like this happened, but it felt like I didn't get hit and thrown back like that, but it felt like I was being cooked like by a microwave. Like all of a sudden you're in your organs and you just start feeling like your blood is boiling and you start getting sick and you can't do anything, but it's out of the blue. And I've experienced that twice in suspicious times. The timing of it was suspicious.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, and this stuff does go all the way back to childhood, but in 2014, I feel personally like I started breaking through with my meditation. Something really popped for me, and I was able to see other spectrums of light. I was able to dissolve my body into 1 billion pixels and completely I don't have to be in my body if I don't want. Astral traveling. And it seemed like when I broke through is when the attacks started coming really hard.
Right. And just for the record, either you have some bugs flying around you or I've seen 3 orbs fly around you in this interview.
There's no bugs in here.
I don't know if you've seen them too, Aaron, but if anybody's watching this, if you rewind them, there's 3 separate occasions where a little white orb looks like it's flying around through there. But okay, so yeah, that would make sense. Like they don't want us tapping into our potential, and depending on like who you are, like in a past life or where you came from,
Right.
Somebody knows that, and they know that if you or any of us tap into our true potential or remember who we are, it's a threat to the entire game, the entire system. So it would make sense to try and make life as miserable as possible for that person. So they don't have time to meditate and they don't want to focus on doing that stuff. And they're always in like survival mode.
I will tell you that I will tell you this, that I haven't, and maybe we can go through some earlier through childhood stuff, but I haven't explored this, nor have I completely like engaged, but many of the people surrounding Super Soldier Talk, I'm on their group thread. I've never like texted anything, but many in that group and James Rink's inner circle have identified me through remote viewing as that I'm part of all this.
Right. Interesting.
Really?
I never had any interest to go on a show. Like, I'm a musician. Like, I want to like keep those worlds separate. So I was like, I made a decision a long time ago. Like, nah, don't go on any of those shows. Don't be one of those people. Keep those worlds separate from each other. But now I'm like, nope. Now I'm gonna say everything.
Right.
Good for you, man.
And I think there's a lot of people that are involved in some sort of program, MILAB experience, abductions, whatever the case may be, then people don't even realize, a lot of people are walking around clueless to the fact. But like if what William Tompkins told us back in 1980, when the Navy in particular started their secret space program and their 20 and back program, if that's true, he said he used millions. He said there was millions of people being recruited in at that time. So if there really are millions of people, then it would make sense that more and more people are going to start remembering things.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. So like probably 3 years ago, I became pretty involved in kind of digging up details about my past that I didn't know. And I looked heavily into a particular doctor who I kept having dreams about being led into underground facilities and all these weird things. So I look up the doctor and I'm like, I find that his medical license was revoked in 1990. And the only online mentioned presence of this doctor is that revocation of his, and basically it wasn't about the revocation itself. Rather, it was communications between the Wisconsin Medical Board asking why there wasn't a full revocation of this license. So it was on hold, right? So it wasn't a full revocation. And the Wisconsin Medical Board was like, this makes no sense. In order for you to get taken off this hold or revocation, you basically have to study under another doctor for a year. You have to be an intern with a doctor for 1 year. He never fulfilled that obligation, and yet his license wasn't revoked. His according to the Wisconsin Medical Board, his reason for not being able to fulfill the terms of reinstating his license is he went to the Persian Gulf at the start of the war.
Wow. So how far back did this start for you? What's your earliest memory of something strange?
Nightly dreams of UFOs.
Right.
Every single night. And many of those dreams involved me.
Well, what age was this? Sorry, like
6.
Okay.
6, 7. And most of these dreams start out where I'm waiting and I'm like, oh no, not again. Not again. So all through my childhood, I'd have these dreams. I had dreams of sitting on this council. It looked like the Star Wars bar, and
I've had experiences up there also.
Yeah, and I got kicked off the council, by the way. At least, in this dream, they kicked me, like I didn't go the way that they wanted me to go, and I was doing other things on the side. And they kicked me off, and I remember being really kind of like hurt, like, hey, come on, you guys, I'm a nice dude,
Right.
So those dreams, and then sort of like astral traveling in my dreams, or that's not really a dream. You're astral traveling when your visual acuity is about 1,000 times better than it is.
Right. Yeah. I've experienced it before.
Way too real. Yeah.
I've done it. I've never been able to initiate it. Every time it happens for me, it just kind of happens. But I know exactly what you mean. It's very vivid. You remember it. Yeah.
Right. So I mentioned to you then, 1994 was like a bananas year for me. My brother Josh and I, my band was playing in the town over about a half an hour away, and the rest of the band had their crap together, and they were way ahead of us. And my brother Josh was my ride to get there. And we had a close encounter with a TR-3B, which brought traffic to a stop. We got out of the car. It wasn't fully dark even. And it was probably about 200 feet in front of us and only like 100 or 200 feet. Like it was casting a shadow. And I was laughing hysterically, like, because I couldn't process, nor had I heard of a TR-3B. I think I'm seeing aliens, you know? And it goes over to the side of the highway, pivots like that, and lowers itself to the ground and remains hovering. And I'm just looking at this thing like, what the? And so we get to the gig. I do that. I filed a report with like New Fork or whatever, you know. And then somebody got back to me from New Fork and then explained to me what that was.
What'd they say it was?
TR-3B.
TR-3B, that it was US Tech.
Right.
Yeah.
So that same year on Christmas Eve, same brother, families ahead of us, we're running behind, we're going to grandma's house. And same deal, TR-3B hovering right over the park by our house. And this time we're following this thing. So it makes its way from the east side to the west side of Green Bay. We grab the nearest bridge, we go over, we can still see it. And we ended up in the parking lot of a paper mill there, and we scaled the fence and it landed on top of the paper mill.
What?
So we show up to grandma's an hour and a half late, right? And we're like, we saw the thing again, we saw the thing. And some of our cousins were like, oh, the Gordon boys are like, you know. But
yeah.
But who isn't laughing is my grandmother, my dad's sister, and my dad's brother. My grandma says, well, Papa Jack, that was my grandfather, he used to get followed home by a weird triangle from the cottage all the time. And then my dad and his siblings start talking about how, wow, we used to see lights when we were young too, and that weird dentist that used to take pieces of our ears out.
What? Right.
And I go, wow. Hey, dentists don't mess with your ears. I go, that's like a screen memory. So yeah, totally. So this all comes, and I'm like, oh, and that was the first time that I realized that something multi-generational was happening in my family, because they talked about UFOs for an hour then.
Well, so, and it's particular your dad's side also.
It is. So about 2 years prior, my family went to, I did not go, but my family and my younger brother and my sister went to like a UFO conference in central Wisconsin. And they thought it'd be interesting, you know, cool day trip. And some film crew was there doing a documentary. And my youngest brother, Andy, had seen all kinds of UFOs to the point where it was every other day. And we were like, oh, you're so cute. You know, you have such an imagination. I was into UFOs, but he had so many stories. Well, this documentary ended up airing about 2 or 3 months after that Christmas Eve. The whole family came over. I wheeled a box TV at that time out to my little deck, and we watched. And my little brother, who was interviewed there, is describing a TR-3B. And then when I was like, Andy, that's the same thing we saw. And he almost started crying. He goes, I know, I told you, no one believed me.
Oh, wow.
How old was he then?
He was, back then, he was probably 6 or 7.
Oh, super.
When we watched the thing, he was more like 11.
Okay.
So it took forever for this documentary to come out, and it was called Searching for UFOs, and you can't find it. There's one past sale on Amazon for a VHS tape. I've been looking. I found it several years ago in like Spanish and sent it to my family because they were interviewed, and I'm like, never forget, you know. And I searched everywhere to find it, but I can't.
When did it come out? Like,
UFOs.
was this the 90s or when did
98
come out? 98.
Yeah.
Okay.
97.
Somebody listening to this, go find that. Searching
find
for
the
UFOs.
VHS of that.
If you find it, email us. Let us know. we want to see it.
Totally.
So, okay, yeah, this is a lot more involved than I expected. You know, from what I gathered from your video, I kind of suspected that this was a MILAB experience, but I had no idea that it went this deep for you. No doubt, no doubt
So
that
now
that
I'm
was,
definitely
yeah,
like, you were, that was an
right.
intentional thing. Yeah.
And yeah, you should keep exploring that, and it's probably a really good thing that you're talking about it actually, because it might actually protect you in a sense, you know, because
Totally.
now people know the stories out there and people know this stuff is happening to you. So if something does happen to you, it's suspicious now, instead of they're not going to be able to lie about it.
Right.
They
So
don't want to make you a martyr and verify your story if they take you out. That's the
Right.
safest thing to do, is to go fully public at the point you're at, in my opinion. So
yeah, I mean, that was
Yeah.
the day that I filmed my initial 5-minute thing. Here's how not savvy I am with the digital things. I'm super good at music production, recording. I get all that. I was like, I actually said to myself, I wonder if I can film a video on my MacBook. And so like, I was like, I figured out how to do it. I just did it. That was like the first take. I'm just like, this is what happened. I uploaded it, and then like a couple hours later, I looked to see, I wonder if anyone looked at this, and every hour it was going up by 100, 200 views. For someone that doesn't have a channel, I have one music video that I made for myself. And then it kept going. And the only other thing I did on my end is I found on Twitter, I don't post, like I don't initiate anything on Twitter, but I'll comment on other people's stuff. And I looked at analytics, and I had some people that had huge followings that were following me, and I had like 100 followers, like I'm nobody. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I'm going to share it with these people. And I just said, hey, you have a huge following. Maybe you can help. And from there, it went to Telegram, and Telegram is where it took off.
Right. And then I had somebody send it to me privately. One of our listeners actually, it's like, hey, you should check this out. And you know, we get a lot of videos sent our way. People want us to read articles. It's too much. We can't do it all. In this case, I was like, okay, like I was just compelled. I'm like, I'm going to watch this. And I'm glad I did, because now here we are. And this is I can't believe like the fact that, you know, Super Soldier Talk and James Rink and even that whole world. I was clueless to any of that whenever I reached out. I, for all I know, you could have been, you know, some sleeper on some, you know.
Right. And it's like, you know, for me, like, and there's a million other stories that I have that, and it goes throughout my family as well. But like when I personally watch like a compelling person that's like a secret space program person, they have such detail and all of this timeline, and they remember everything of everywhere they went. That's not the case for me. I have an entire life full of these disparate but connected things. So I don't know what my story is ultimately.
Right. It's all out of context. There's no baseline. Eventually, maybe one day it'll make sense if you're supposed to know. But I mean, it's enough. Yeah. It's overwhelming enough just to be experiencing that stuff. So maybe remembering it. I think remembering sometimes could be detrimental to your health because it would trigger some buried traumas and stuff like that.
Very traumatic.
Yeah. So who knows? You know,
I will say this: like my distrust for any authority and stuff, I think is linked to something beyond this planet. And I've never heard any super soldier, and I'm not saying that I am one, but this is a phenomenon that I've experienced my whole life, and it does lead me to believe that there's like tons of trauma. And I'll give you for instance. I dated this really mean girl like in 2017, 2018. And I noticed something very, very weird. And that was when she would do something or say something terrible to me, I couldn't remember it the next day. And my friends would be like, dude, why are you with this girl? Like, she was like really mean to you like last night. And I'm like, what did she say? So I already have a built-in way of compartmentalizing.
Yeah,
When,
that's
when
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
You
a telltale sign.
telltale sign. Yeah. You tend
Yeah.
to block those memories out. Like,
Mhm.
people can't even remember in their entire childhood sometimes because of, it just part of you subconsciously just shuts
Yeah.
that down.
And honestly, it sounds like you could have been MK Ultra in that, because what that's designed to do is to create those compartments where you literally are like multiple different people in one body, and you have no knowledge or awareness of the other compartments when you're in your like normal you. And then they have their ways of like switching you over, and then you have all these traumatic and crazy experiences and memories from those compartments, but you literally have no knowledge. So they don't, it's not even mind wiping, it's like mind compartmentalizing, and they just switch you over,
right, and
So it sounds like that might be
It's trauma-based mind control.
it
trauma-based
is,
mind
Yeah.
control.
and it's interesting because in the compartment in the compartment that I'm in right now, in this space, in the things that I like to do musically, comedy, I'm into all these different things. People constantly compliment me on my memory within this thing, right? So I remember everything. I can go to a gig and play with someone I haven't played with in 4 years. Like, dude, our guy canceled. Can you step in? And my muscle memory just comes back. So when in this normal sort of window, my memory is unbelievably like acute, like perfect.
Right.
But if someone does something really horrendous to me, it's almost like a drug. It gets released into my brain, and the next day I'm like, "How you doing? Are you hungry?"
Have no
Right.
memory at all. Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah. Well, there
That's
might be a
crazy.
reason, might be that memory. You might have an IQ or something. There's something there that's appealing to them, why they want you in the first place.
Totally.
And so, starting at a young age, and who knows what that testing looks like. There's always like a recruitment process or something. And it's important to realize too, is like just because like Super Soldier talks about the secret space program doesn't mean that everybody in the space program is a super soldier. And you don't have to have a military background. You don't have to, I don't think there's any real protocols. Maybe for certain factions of it, yeah, you might join the military and get recruited that way.
Tony Rodriguez doesn't have a military
Right,
background.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think more and more people are going to start coming forward that don't have military backgrounds. And it's because of it. Unfortunately, it's a dark program, and there's a slavery aspect to it, and a mind control and trauma based. And if they're starting at that young of an age, you don't need, you don't have a military background then. It's not like, so you were chosen as a child. It doesn't mean that you have to be in the military to be in these programs. And there's no part of that that says that everyone is a super soldier.
Yeah, I do possess certain abilities. I will say though, I have always lacked discipline. I don't keep things straight for very long. I kind of get lost and abandon this or abandon this project. I've never been able to keep everything totally straight and like on course. Just kind of a dreamer. But when I was like very, very young, like 3, 4 years old, if for instance, my mom would say, "Okay, enough TV for you, young man. Go into your room and play with your toys." I'd be like, "Okay." And I'd go into my room and I would rewatch Bugs Bunny on my wall, and I would cast it from my eyes. I could watch,
Really?
I would remember, yeah, and there was no process.
Just from your memory, you would like imagine it.
And I could visually see it on the wall. I can do that with music, whereby if I want to hear Strawberry Fields Forever, I don't think about it. I can I can start it, and it plays from beginning to end in perfect clarity.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's almost like a type of a photographic memory, but it's like video memory rather than photo, where it's like recorded and you can just play it back. Yeah.
I wonder like if that's a natural ability or how much of that was enhanced through whatever programs or MK Ultra. Unfortunately, it might be a result of that, or it might just be a natural ability that you have.
Yeah, right. I guess I don't know, but my inclination and the feeling of my larger self is that I came into this world with quite a bit of something already.
Right. Of
Yeah.
course. I think
Yeah,
a lot of us
totally.
did. You wouldn't be here right now
Mm.
talking to us if that wasn't the case. You know, your life would
Yeah.
look your life would look entirely different right now.
Yeah.
You found yourself here. I mean, it's
And I
time.
think that's why you were targeted. And
Right.
it
So
sounds like your whole life they've kind of been messing with you and utilizing your abilities for whatever, who knows what, you know.
It's like they don't, because I always think of like the most logical way to, like, if someone wanted to kill me, they kind of would have been able to do that already.
Oh yeah.
But I think that I'm being messed with, like, of the electronic stuff that happens to me, right? I think that I'm still being used in some way, but they're messing with me if I get out of line, type of thing. But I've had instances with the electronic devices where, for instance, I had a vision in 2017 where I woke up in the middle of the night. They always come in the middle of the night. They feel like downloads. And I witnessed the Big Bang. I saw a finger hit an enter key. The Big Bang happened, and underneath were ones and zeros flying at me along with the debris from the Big Bang. Like the second dimension and the third dimension were coming at me. So I'm like, I'm writing a song about that. And I wrote a song.
Nice.
And I actually rap in it, which is hilarious. But
nice.
But anyway, so I'm getting my album together, and you got to upload to Bandcamp, and that was the last song that I did. And at the very second that final song uploaded, every device that I had, like a MacBook Pro, a Mac Tower, a Chromebook, and my phone, all 4 devices, all of the hard drives filled up at the same time. Yes, you're out of space. And I'm a meticulous, like, space keeper and trasher of things I don't need.
Yeah.
Some sort of virus
on all devices at the same
across
time.
every platform. I'm like, I have a Samsung phone. I had like a Chromebook and then 2 Apple devices, and all of them were out of. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
yeah. So
yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, that's all telltale signs of targeting. So what else has happened, aside from the TR3B thing and the electronics and stuff? Is anything else significant that you want to share?
There's a ton. I mean, do you want to hear about individual UFO experiences, or?
Well, I mean, it's up to you. I just didn't know if you like, while we're doing this and while you're.
Well, I think I'll tell you one UFO story, because this has a component to it that all the others do not have, because something was transferred to me first before the awareness of the UFO. So I was laying on a blanket in a park in Milwaukee reading a book, and I could hear some chatter coming from these people in Spanish. And I looked up, and there's all these young kids, they're probably 20s, whatever, looking around. They're looking for something. And so I said, hey, did you guys lose something? And they're like, yeah, we can't find our keys, man. And I was like, I'll help you look for keys. I'm not doing anything. So I'm kind of going around. We're doing crazy 8s around each other for about 10 minutes. And into my head, the words, can I go one goddamn day without seeing a UFO? And I was like, what? I look up, and there's 3 hovering right above me. And I tap one of the guys on the shoulder. I go, hey. And now we're all just looking at it. So the thought came first, so something was communicated to me first. And
I wonder if that's voice of God, tech or something like that.
Or
do you guys get the thing? So I have normal tinnitus that I've had from being in loud ass rock and roll bands.
Right.
And I always just keep like a fan on, like when I sleep. But I get this other thing, and it's almost always in my left ear. And what happens is You know that feeling?
I get that. Where it last, does it last for like 20 seconds, like a short
Not even
time, and then
like 10, but
yeah, 10 seconds. Yeah,
you
I
know,
get that
you
a
know
lot.
that you know that feeling you get when you fall in a dream and it's all in your stomach.
Hmm.
I have that
Yeah.
feeling, but it's in my head first. So it feels like my whole consciousness falls, and then
At the same time, so you get that feeling, and then
I get the feeling, and
down.
then this happens.
Yeah, I
Mm,
wonder what that could be. A number
interesting.
of possibilities. I would love to know. Like, is it a technology? Is it something organic from one of your guides? Is it, what is it? I wonder.
I think that like my the day before this crash happened, I decided that for me, that whatever was happening in my left ear was not good. And in addition to all of the grounding and protection spell type I do every day, which is, it's long, but I usually just say, I hereby cancel all contracts with all dark, demonic, vampiric entities in all timelines, all realms, all dimensions, in what we call the past, what we call the present, what we call the future, in the dream realms, the astral realms, and in the void, and all AI. I cancel and I do not agree to any AI interference in my life. But I had not yet identified this left ear thing as being a negative thing. And I worked all day on like, I cancel and decommission any tech that is sending these codes into my left ear. And I worked on it a long time during the day. And then abracadabra, the next day, I roll my car and I'm hooked up to a COVID vent.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's absolutely incredible. I mean, it's an incredible story. It's not incredible that that happened, but wow. Yeah, there's no coincidences, right? I
No,
mean, yeah.
It's
So,
almost like you canceled that, and they were trying to like redo it. Maybe they were trying to like
or as a consequence
scramble
or
to
something.
reconnect you to something,
there's
or
quite a bit,
consequence.
there's quite a bit of pushback on a regular basis, and it's always something so out of left field and bizarre. Um,
Hmm.
People will turn on me. I'll meet someone and like it feels like we're hitting it off, and suddenly they turn into a different person and start attacking me.
Really
Yeah. Because, and
interesting.
I also, in that diatribe, that grounding and production diatribe, I usually include, and I'm protected from all emissaries who could be influenced by dark, demonic, or vampiric entities. So I had to add that at a certain point because
Because they get to
one,
the people around you. Yeah.
yes, because what? Because I
Yeah.
actually had an Archon like period where they were coming at me a lot, and I started exercising them out of other people, and then none of those attacks came on me anymore with that protection spell. Then it started coming from other people, and then people would suddenly just lose their cool around me and say stuff that made no sense and accuse me of like really bizarre stuff. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I get it. They're
Almost like they become possessed out of nowhere, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I've
That's
heard
what
of
it
that
feels like to
happening.
me.
Yeah.
I've heard
That's,
stories
well,
of
sometimes
that
when they can't get to you, they get to the people around you or
around you.
whatever it might look like, whatever it's circumstantial. It's always going to be different. They just take advantage of the surroundings or the scenario you're in.
Right.
Or they might be under some order to do something. You never know what the possibilities could be, but uh man, I think it's only the beginning of discovering what the hell's actually going on because it's time. Of whatever is happening on the planet right now is activating thousands of people and memories and
Mhm.
experiences. Everything's coming to the surface. Nobody's life looks quite normal anymore. If you're aware of this stuff, if you're aware of this stuff and you have experiences like you do, like it's becoming very apparent that life is never going to go back to being the way it used to be. And who knows where we're going, but it's not going to be familiar.
It's like everything is happening at once, even more so than usual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
Like we're at this
Yeah.
crescendo, we're at this point. Wow. Well,
Mhm.
thanks for coming on and sharing all this, man. It's been absolutely, this was way
Yeah.
more than I expected. It was fascinating. I'm sure you have more in you, and if you ever,
Yeah, I had a great time talking with you guys, and I'll extend myself to any future talks. I enjoyed it.
right, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
do you still have the scars on your forehead from it?
No, I heal fast because I have.
Oh wow, you did. Because in the video you still had it.
Well, so what date was that video recorded?
January 30th.
January.
Oh wow.
30th. Oh, so that was 9 days ago.
10 days ago.
Yeah, yeah.
It healed pretty good though.
You still
There's
got
just
the
one
nose.
little,
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
right.
Because I remember you saying you're like, I want to get on a show while this is still here, so I have the proof,
Right.
Well, my roommate had some sort of salve that really helped. He's like an herbal
nice.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So that sped it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I would be happy to talk to you guys any old time.
Right. Yeah, we'll do this again, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, man.
Thank you for coming forward. Thanks for being brave and sharing your story.
Yeah.
'Cause it's not easy, obviously. And we can't thank you enough. And good luck. We're gonna send you our protection and keep us updated if anything else happens.
Sounds good, gentlemen. I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
So much.
I hope you enjoyed this. He's gone. Well,
And he's gone.
anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. Please help us get this out there, share it far and wide, because it's just the censorship right now is ramped up, extremely ramped up, and it's not easy to get any information out there. So the best thing you could do is please share this and help us get this message out there. We appreciate everything you guys are doing for us. And thank you and have a great evening. Until next time.
Good night, guys.
He said, listen, give me 2 years. You'll never want to come back. You'll have the adventure of a lifetime and nobody will know you're gone.
You get deployed at 17 and a half. And now I was deployed from the New York Athletic Club. And we got actually deployed right out of the locker room from, you get beamed up to the ship and then the ship takes off and you're gone for 20 years.
It's a very hard pill to swallow, but that's exactly how I experienced it. I was taken at 10 years old. I was taken and I was worked through several black programs. I was privately owned in the beginning. I did six or 7 years on Earth.
That's when all the stuff for the programs began for me. Specifically, the tracking that they had been doing since I was a kid, it followed me all the way through the military. And at that point, when I got to Diego Garcia, that's where I was taken off planet.
Kind of opened that floodgate for me. And then all of these recalls started coming in and I was just like, oh my gosh. And the way I was describing it, she's like, I've never had this with a client, but you're describing a parallel life right now.
It's a combination of human and other species. I was able to remember the name on their uniform. It's USS Arcorp. That was putting me through some kind of recruitment tests from age 3 until 12. And 12 is when I was potentially, taken.
He said, with your scores, I guarantee you'll make commander and you'll make pilot. And I said, pilot of what? And he said, 4-kilometer-long Starship. He told me what was going to happen. He says, you volunteer for the program, we'll put you in, you'll do 20 years, we'll send you back in time 20 years, age regress you 20 years, wipe your memory, and you'll just wake up in bed like nothing happened.
It's almost beyond words, it's beyond comprehension of how this could happen. Whoever's masterminding this, the Air Force, working with extraterrestrials, working with a lot of pretty wild technology, which I'll also get into, it's really beyond fathomable. It's beyond fathomable.